You're listening to the Journey podcast. Are you ready to explore the energetic dimensions of yoga and how it can help with your healing journey? Stay tuned for more. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Energy medicine yoga is a transformative practice that combines the principles of energy work with the physical and spiritual aspects of yoga. In this episode, we delve into the topic of energy medicine yoga, exploring its unique approach to healing and personal transformation. Our guest, the creator of energy medicine yoga, shares her expertise and insights on how this practice can help individuals tap into the body's energy systems, release blockages, and promote holistic healing. We discuss the integration of energy work techniques with yoga, breathwork, and meditation, creating a powerful synergy for deep healing and self-discovery. Llewellyn Walker is the author of The Energy to Heal. She previously published Energy Medicine Yoga, Amplify the Healing Power of Your Yoga Practice, and The Energy Medicine Yoga Prescription. Both books won the Nautilus Silver Award for Best Mind-Body Publication. She's been teaching yoga and meditation since 1997 and created energy medicine yoga while teaching at Norwich University. She teaches EM yoga across the US and internationally and has been featured many times in Yoga Journal, Yoga Digest, and published a feature article about her yoga work in the New York Times. In 2016, she was named one of the top 100 most influential yoga teachers in America. Here is my interview with Llewellyn Walker. Hi, Llewellyn. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because energy medicine yoga is such an interesting space for holistic healing. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Petra. It's great to be here with you too.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you. And do you want to share a little bit about yourself and your story and how you got into this amazing space of work?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. So I started practicing yoga in the mid 90s, late 90s, 96, 97 actually is when I started. I had just moved back to New York City and was working on some novels that I had written, and I needed some physical outlet. And if you live in New York City or any big city, if you don't have a lot of money, you can't really join a gym, and I'm not a runner, which is free. So I was really looking for some physical outlet, and my roommate gave me a flyer to a yoga studio. And at that point, yoga was not like it is today. Like there's a yoga studio on every corner and, everybody knows what yoga is and it's in TV shows and advertisements and all that. It really wasn't like that. And I thought yoga was for old ladies and I was really not that interested. But I went anyway to the studio because I really needed to do something. And it was absolutely nothing like I had thought at all. I stepped into what turned out to be one of the hippest yoga studios in New York City. And it was, dancers and actors and just incredibly physically demanding and emotionally and spiritually demanding as well, which I discovered when I got more into it. I just started to go every single day to this studio and I would study 2 or 3 or 4 hours a day for 9 months. I just couldn't get enough of it. And then I took a teacher training and started to teach right away in New York City as well. And then moved back to where I had been living prior out west and opened a little yoga space, or actually just started teaching yoga and then opened a yoga studio. And was just kind of going along this sort of yoga path and loving it and just kept studying and learning because I'm a lifelong learner. So I'm constantly studying, finding new teachers, new methodologies. And that was all well and good, and I loved it. And I was teaching a very powerful physical practice and studying some very high level philosophy and history of yoga, and just really in. And I also was noticing the limitations that yoga was presenting for me, things I kept coming up against that I wasn't able to resolve with the yoga practice that I had. So, we all have traumatic experiences in our lives of some kind or another, whether they're really massive ones that take us completely out of the lives that we thought we would have and throw us somewhere else, all the way down to just, the little microaggressions, things that happen to us on a day to day that just throw us, that we don't know why it's presenting as such a big thing. And we get thrown. And I was sort of in the middle of that in terms of the traumas that I was experiencing. At least I thought at the time. So I was just trying to resolve these. I wasn't moving forward in my life. I wasn't finding peace and contentment, all these things that yoga was promising me, and I wasn't realizing them. And so I realized that I needed to find something else. Was it a new yoga teacher, a new style of yoga, a new practice, a new discipline altogether? Was I going to go study acupuncture? What was it going to be? And what I've found over the years is that when you frame your question correctly, oftentimes the answer comes, and the answer came really quickly. I was introduced to the work of Donna Eden by two different people in two different countries within the span of 2 months. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. Let me check out this. I'd never heard of Donna Eden before. She is an internationally renowned scholar, teacher, healer, best-selling author. And I went to a retreat with her and was absolutely blown away by what I learned. She was teaching things that could be considered, or certainly would be relevant and helpful to my yoga studies, but in a way I had never heard them before and never understood them before. The yoga studies I had done were very esoteric practices and high level teachings that were hard to replicate and hard to even understand. And here was this woman on this stage talking in very easy to understand terms and showing in real time practices that you could use to change patterns in the body very quickly and very easily. So I started to study with her, and it completely changed the trajectory of my life. Starting to understand what energy actually is, how it works in the body, how you can have your own personal relationship with energy, with your specific energies, how that is your birthright, and how we've not been taught to use and understand the energies that animate us. And because I am a yogi and had been studying and teaching yoga for many years, I naturally began to put these practices into the yoga that I was already doing. And that was when the aha moment really just started to come fast and furious. These two practices were natural companions and almost sister sciences, almost in the way that yoga and Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga, literally the science of yoga. And energy medicine was the energy component of yoga that I had been missing. And so I started to put these practices together and started to practice them at the same time. And they just kept speaking to each other and increasing the benefits of each practice. So the more energy work that I did, the better my yoga became. The more yoga I did, the better my energy medicine practices became, until it was blurred about which one was which. And so I started to write this all down and codify it, put it together. And then I shared it with Donna because a lot of it was based on her work. Certainly that was the springboard. And she looked at what I had done and said, "This is amazing. This needs to get out into the world." And that was the start. And 3 books later, and thousands of students all over the world. And here we are on a podcast talking about energy medicine yoga, the style of yoga that I created by bringing in Donna Eden's energy medicine techniques with a traditional yoga practice.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. And that has been quite the journey that you've been on as well. And I'm curious, what is the difference between energy medicine yoga and just regular yoga that we can practice at sort of the yoga studios that have popped up all over the place? What's the difference with the yoga that you created?
So there are a lot of differences and a lot of things that would look very similar to a traditional yoga practice. You'll be on a yoga mat, you'll be doing asana that you're very familiar with. Those are the poses like downward facing dog and, things like you've practiced before, or like I said, seen somewhere. So a lot of things will be very similar. And in an energy medicine yoga practice, you will be also doing these different movements and techniques that optimize the flows of the 9 energy systems that each person has in their body. And so instead of just diving forward into a full forward bend at the start of a sun salutation, you will be weaving your hands back and forth in front of the body as you dive forward to instill and activate one of the energy systems that crosses over the body. And that's incredibly important in healing in the body. The other pieces that start to emerge is this understanding of what energy is in the body so that you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and guiding your attention to the sensations that you'll be feeling, speaking to the body, and learning the language that the body speaks, which is energy. And what's interesting is yoga is traditionally an energetic practice, but we've lost a lot of that in this Western push towards physical domination over anything else. So yoga in the West has become a very physical, acrobatic practice, and we've lost a lot of the deeper understanding and essences of yoga as an energetic practice that connects us with our deepest sense of self. But also, even beyond that deeper sense of self and the spirituality piece, which is really starting to become more and more active in yoga studios, is the healing piece. Because once you get your energies working for you, your ability to heal and to thrive and to manifest increase exponentially. And so we have a lot of students that are working with healing, whether it's body, mind, or spirit, that becomes primary. And your emotions is another huge piece that is really front and center in energy medicine yoga, and something that most students comment upon really soon after starting the practice. In a traditional yoga practice, you may have emotional releases, and you might have seen them in a class and everybody starts crying, or one person starts crying and then everybody starts crying and nobody sort of understands why, and the teacher doesn't really know what to do except whatever skills they've been given to soothe. But in an energy medicine yoga practice, we actually invite you and all of your emotions, which are part of you and part of your energy, into the class so that you have active ways to explore the emotions that you're feeling, to understand the information that they're bringing you, and to release the challenging energies of those emotions and just leave behind the information so that you have more ease in your life.
Wow. I was going to ask you about that because when I see people practicing yoga and they put these crazy pictures on Instagram on how they have put themselves in various positions, it seems to be, like you said, just a very acrobatic practice that has lost touch with the energetic part a little bit. So that's really interesting to hear that you have added that back into what yoga was to begin with. I find that very interesting. What are some of the ways that energy medicine yoga can help with healing the emotional and mental side of the body versus, the workout that we get when we do conventional yoga?
So, one of the first things that we teach in energy medicine yoga is the understanding that energy is all there is. So, while you feel like a solid body and you're practicing on a floor that feels solid, in a room, in a building that feels solid, the reality beneath all of that is everything is energy. In other words, your physical body is actually more empty space than anything else. You are made of atoms, which are mostly empty space, vibrating bits of energy at the deepest level. If you continue to break down an atom smaller and smaller and smaller, you get to the smallest measured quantity, which is called a Planck spherical unit. Now, this gets a little technical, but it's fun to really let your mind wander to these understandings, because this is the reality underneath this physical structure that appears so real. are the root of everything, is sound, vibration, light. That is what the universe is made of, and everything within it, including that building that you're doing the yoga classes in and the physical body. So when you know yourself to be energy, then it makes much more sense to learn the language of energy and how through the physical body you can speak to the underlying the underlying essence of what you are in your own native tongue, which is energy. And so once you understand that, the path to healing becomes much more accessible because the body is built to heal. It is actually built into the system of every part of you. You are built to heal. When you cut your skin, if you just watch it, if you get a paper cut and you just watch that cut, so it cuts and you see, red runs to the surface, the blood comes to the surface and it hurts. And you maybe wash the blood off, but it's not deep enough. You're not even going to put a Band-Aid on. We're just talking about a little superficial cut on the skin. And if you watch that over the next few days, it will heal completely and you won't even be able to see that cut anymore. Now, what did you do? Did you say, body, white blood cells, you guys go to that area right on the back of my hand, and red blood cells, you guys have to come in after the white? You don't say anything. You don't do anything. You literally do nothing and your body heals. So that's obviously on the superficial level, but that carries all the way up because we are just a fractal repetition. In other words, what happens at the smallest level happens at the largest level. What happens at the cellular level happens at the group of cells, happens at the organ level, happens at the ecosystem level, which is you. And so the body is built to heal. The things that stop the body from healing are inputs that we put into it, whether it's toxins or poisons, whether you're eating too much sugar or drinking too much alcohol, or you're angry all the time, you have emotional toxins in the body. Whatever those are, that is what is inhibiting your healing. And through an energy medicine yoga practice, we identify and remove the blocks to healing so that the body does what the body is built to do, which is heal. And we remove those blocks in a very easeful, energetic way because we understand what the body is saying to us in energetic terms. We see that pain in the body is energy that is stuck. So we figure out where and how and move that stuck energy, like a traffic jam in the road that's stopping traffic in all directions. You go to the very center and you bring in a tow truck and you move the car that broke down away. Or if there's an accident, you bring in the medical teams to help support. Did somebody get injured? So you take care of the things that need to be taken care of first, and you clear away the things that need to be cleared away so that energy, the traffic, your life, whatever it is, can start flowing again in the most optimal directions. And when that happens, you're in the life that you want to be in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when you touched on before, when you talked about your story and you touched on the fact that you sort of added that energy component back to yoga and that simplified your yoga practice in a sense, what can we say to some listeners who might have experienced difficulty practicing yoga or practicing the poses? Is there anything that you can tell them about energy medicine yoga and how that could maybe help them practice in a simpler, easier way for them?
Absolutely. And this sort of goes back to what you were saying about the pictures on social media of those crazy wild poses. And at this point now, I use that for inspiration as opposed to, you can look at those poses and think, I'll never do that in my body. So that's yoga. So what's the point of doing yoga? And so the way that you're hearing me hesitate because I'm like, there's two streams that I want to talk about here. But I think the more important one is just to directly answer your question in that yoga is going to meet you where you are, ideally. And energy medicine yoga is designed expressly for that, to meet you where you are. So whatever physical state your body is in right now is where you're going to begin. I have students that are recovering from major illnesses or injuries. I've practiced yoga, EM yoga myself, recovering from major injuries. I've got students that practiced in hospital beds and quadriplegic that practices EM yoga. So here's a couple of pieces of that. You start where you are, and every pose can be modified to work with whatever physical situation you are in. If you're in a wheelchair, if you have no use of one of your limbs, or I've been healing from a herniated disc in my back. Now, if you looked at a herniated disc, you'd say that person is not going to practice yoga for a significant amount of time. And it's true. I'm not going to be doing those poses that you see on Instagram. However, I have not stopped once my energy medicine yoga practice. I'll just give you one little teaser trailer on that. There's been many, many studies showing that visualization actually activates the physical body in a very similar way. So if that you practice piano scales in your mind, you're actually increasing your ability to play the piano better. You can practice weightlifting in your mind and you will actually increase your muscle mass. And you can practice energy medicine yoga. If there's poses that aren't accessible in your body at this time, you can visualize them, visualizing the flows of energy that are moving through your body. We actually have practices that we do in total stillness, lying in Shavasana, or we encourage you, if you've forgotten to do this one particular practice and you're lying in bed getting ready to go to sleep, do it in your mind as you go to sleep, and you are still getting the effects. Energy goes where attention goes. So if you bring your attention to a certain part of the body, the energy will come to that part of the body. So if you start to visualize these flows of energy, energy will flow to these areas of the body. So it's a both and, both visualizing the practices that aren't attainable to you and modifying the practices so that they work with your body and with whatever challenges you're currently working with.
That is absolutely fascinating. And it does allow pretty much anyone to practice energy medicine yoga because, like you said, it just meets them where they're at. So I love that. And do you have maybe some simple daily practices that people could try for sort of a more healthier and happier life? Maybe a little tip from the energy medicine yoga practice or something like that?
Absolutely. And actually, I'll share a little bit. We have this practice. It's called the Energy Medicine Yoga Wake Up. And it's a short little, you can do it in under 3 minutes. And it's a practice that we do at the start of everything, at the start of every EM yoga class. If you take classes with us online or in person or at retreat with myself or with any trained EM yoga teacher, you are going to see the EM yoga wake up and practice it yourself. We also have on our website, you can purchase a little EM yoga wake up starter kit and learn it, but I can share it with you because it's really, really easy. And the reason that we do it at the start of everything, and honestly, this was the genesis of energy medicine yoga. Because once I started studying energy and started to understand it and understand how it works in the body, the piece that you learn right away is that energy needs to move and it needs space to move, and it moves in particular patterns in the body. And there are some patterns that are optimal for flows of energy in the body. As a matter of fact, there are 2 patterns that if they are not happening in the body, you are working at a 50% deficit. That means you're putting half a tank of gas in and you're going to go on a 10-hour road trip, right? You're not going to get very far. It's also these 2 directions of energy, if they're not being met, are at the root cause of every single dis-ease pattern in the body. And I say this like from pimples to Parkinson's disease. If these 2 energies aren't flowing at the root level, at the root cellular level, you cannot heal. You cannot heal. And so the wake up, the EM yoga wake up, is to get these basic flows of energy online and working correctly so that everything else can flow from that. And when I started practicing and started creating EM yoga, I thought, if I'm going to a regular yoga class and I'm not doing these little techniques to begin with, this yoga practice that I'm taking or doing or practicing isn't even landing. It's not even entering into my cellular structure because my cells can't take anything in because everything's running backwards. All my energies are running backwards. They're running on parallel lines to each other, so they're not communicating. And so whatever you do, whether you're going to school and trying to learn something, or you're going to work and trying to execute a project, or you're, playing tennis with a friend, or you're going to an interview or a first date, and nothing's going well, often it is because these root energies are going haywire, and you are only energy. And so if your root energies are going haywire, that's you going haywire. And so that's you in your day getting stressed out or anxious, little things affecting you more, not feeling clarity, not feeling easeful, not feeling like you can get your work done. Okay, I've talked enough about what all those things are. What is this little technique? Okay, I'm going to share it with you right now and try it. And then if you want to learn more about it, you can find all kinds of things on our website and YouTube and all kinds of stuff like that. So I'm just going to share with you 2 pieces of the energy medicine yoga wake up. And there's about 4 or 5 total pieces to it, but I'm going to share the 2 most important. So the first is you're going to find your collarbones, and then you see those round sort of bony tips at the end of the collarbones. You're going to drop down under about an inch. So you're at the very top of your chest. You're really just underneath the collarbones there by about an inch. And you kind of, if you drop from those tips of the collarbones down, you can almost feel that your fingers get sucked into the physical body. And you're actually in a little bit of a space between the top 2 ribs there, between the collarbones and the rib there. So you're in a little bit of an intercostal space, and the fingers just feel like they slide right in. And if you just press there, everybody listening right now, press in with either your thumbs, or put your thumbs and your first 2 fingers together and press in really hard. Like, give it some pressure there. And just notice if that feels sore. And if that feels sore, that is telling you that you need to do what I'm about to show you. It's also telling you that chances are really strong that your energy is moving backwards right now. Now, when I say backwards, a lot of people think you mean like towards my back, going against, the body. What does that mean, backwards? I mean that every flow of energy, and I mentioned we have 9 systems in the body, and every one of them has a specific direction that it flows in. So you can think about it like, again, back to our cars metaphor. There's one-way streets, there's two-way streets, there's like the big clover leaves going onto a superhighway, and you drive in the correct direction. If you started going the wrong way down a one-way street, you can just imagine what havoc that would create for you personally and for those other energies, let's just say, around you. So that's the same thing that happens in the body. Energy can be going the wrong way down that one-way street, which means you're not really getting where you need to go in any area of your life. So here we go. We're going to turn that around. You're 1 inch down about from the tips of the collarbones, and you're just going to start to thump really strongly on your chest. And you might even be able to pick that up through my mic. You might be hearing as I'm thumping on my chest. I'm using my first 2 fingers and my thumb kind of pinched together. You can use fists and go really hard, like Tarzan style, on your chest, which, by the way, is doing the exact same thing that we're doing. If you're an athlete or you like to watch athletics, you've probably seen racers at the start of a race thump or pound or massage at the very top of the chest. That's the same thing that we are doing right now. And what that is we're flipping all of these energies around in the body that may be going backwards and getting them to move forwards. So when you get out of bed in the morning, just thump on those points. Now, there's a few other sets of points that we thump on, but I'm not going to talk you through all of those right now because that's the one main starting point that I really want you to remember. And if I tell you too many things, you're not going to remember them all. Remember this point, the very top of the chest there. And if you're not sure, you're not really clear, wait, where exactly she's talking about? I don't know. I might not be getting it. Just make fists with your hands and pound all over the top of the chest, just like Tarzan. And I promise you, you will be getting those points. This is one of the languages of energy. Energy speaks in pulsations. And so by you tapping or thumping or banging on your chest like this, you are pulsing this information to your energy system saying, hey, everybody, time to wake up, time to move forward. And that's exactly what that energy does. The second piece that I'm going to share with you is the second most important flow of energy. So the first is it has to move forward. You cannot heal, you cannot manifest, you cannot thrive in your life if your energy is running backwards. Period. It just isn't going to happen energetically, which is what you are, your only energy. And if your energy is moving backwards, it's not going to allow you to come into these other states of being that you're so desirous of. If you suffer from depression or anxiety or any of these things, you really want to start to reprogram your energies to serve you. All the antidepressants in the world are not going to flip your depression if your energy is habitually running backwards. Second flow of energy is crossing over. So you might have heard, and you might know this, that the brain, the hemispheres, the sides of the brain operate or control the opposite sides of the body. So the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body, and the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. And there's a crossover in the very center of the brain where information is shared across these hemispheres. What that tells us is that information needs to be shared across these hemispheres for you to be able to work integratedly in your life. Information needs to be shared. This crossover pattern needs to happen. And it doesn't only happen in the brain, it happens all the way down to the level of the DNA, that spiral, that crossover pattern. Here's that fractal idea again. What happens at the smallest level happens at the largest level. Energy is constantly crossing over back and forth, relaying. This is what the left is doing. This is what the right is doing. Left and right and left and right. And with that, everybody moves together and forward. But if it's not happening like that, all you're getting is left, 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 left. Right, 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 right. Have you ever heard that idea? The left hand and the right hand don't know what the other one's doing? That is not healthy for the body. Everybody needs to be integrated to be on the same page. So here's how we're going to integrate the left and the right side of the body. I'm sitting down. You can do this seated. You can do this standing. You can do this lying in bed. You can visualize this in your mind if it's challenging for you to move, or you just want to play with the idea and the practices of visualization and see how it changes your energy. But I'm doing it seated, and all you're going to do is tap the same hand to the same leg. Right hand to right thigh, left hand to left thigh. Back and forth, right to right, left to left, right to right. I'm going to do that about 5 times, touching each thigh about 5 times. And then I'm going to dust my hands off as if I'm getting some flour off the hands. And now I'm just going to cross it over. So now my right hand goes to the left thigh, the left hand goes to the right thigh. And I'm going to do that back and forth for twice as many times at least that I did the same side. So if I did 5 times the same side on each one, I'm going to make sure that I do at least 10 times crossing over. So basically what I'm doing is I'm weaving that energy, right? You go over to the left side and gather information and bring it back to the right. Left, you go over to the right side, gather that information and bring it back to the left, so that I'm getting this information now to integrate across the center line of the body. You're going to do that, like I said, twice as long crossing over as you did the same side. Those are 2 of the essential and critical pieces to the EM Yoga Wake Up. I didn't really cue you on breathing this whole time. You're going to breathe nice deep breaths as you're practicing this in the nose and out the mouth, which is also very different than a traditional yoga practice. And there's lots of reasons for that, but I feel like I've been talking for a really long time without a break. So I'm going to pause here and turn it back to you, Petra, and see where we go from here.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. And that is so interesting to hear about the crossover between the brain hemispheres, because when I broke my foot, it seemed that my brain kind of lost the ability to tell where my foot was after. And part of the healing was my chiropractor encouraging me to close my eyes, and with my eyes closed, try and point my finger of the left hand to the left foot, which was the broken foot, and I could not find it. I kept tapping the table and the chair, but not the foot. And on the right side, I was able to do that. So that reconnection that brings the healing across the hemispheres, it's a very real thing. And I love that you have a practice on that. So I hope that our listeners rewind the podcast and keep listening to that and keep doing that and try that out in their lives and see what changes for them. Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And I love that you had that visceral experience with it because, some of this stuff can seem, in the ideal realm until you really bring it into practice and you see. And so if any of you listeners out there have, recently injured yourself in any capacity, you really need to start doing these patterns, the crossover pattern and getting the energy moving forward actually first, because the body will heal regardless. Let me just say that. It's not like you're not going to heal, but you are going to heal faster and deeper if you get these energy systems aligned. And these lingering, if you've ever had an injury or a surgery or something like that, and years later, you can still feel a lingering something connected to that. Often that is because the energies haven't fully come back into their correct alignment and flows from that injury, especially if you've had a surgery where you've had skin cut or been cut into. The lines of energy, the meridian lines of energy are disrupted from that. The other flows of energy are disrupted from that. So it's really, really important I just can't really stress enough. It's just so important to work with your energy. It's all there is. So everything stems from that. If you're struggling in your life, your energy is struggling first. So that also takes a little bit of the personal out of it. I've struggled a lot in my life with different things, depression and all kinds of different mental structures, I even call them now, because I understand now that they were more energy than anything else. And so to get your energy working for you instead of fighting against, why isn't this working in my life? I have such good willpower, but this still isn't happening. And your energy is a real thing. It's a real thing. And once you befriend it and come into relationship with it, all of these other relationships that you're having in your life with yourself, with your own mental body, with your own emotional and spiritual body, with your own physical body. If you have any issues with your own physical body, especially with likes and dislikes, especially for women, we carry so many loathsome habits around our bodies. And a lot of those stem right back into the energies. And so it's so, so, so important to start working with those energies so that we can come into this equanimity and this balance in our lives.
Yeah. It's so many aha moments as you're talking. So I hope that our listeners are also experiencing that and light bulbs are going on and as to why and how they're experiencing things and how they can heal from that. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And in the energy medicine yoga practices, you also offer program services. And do you want to maybe summarize a little bit of what you offer so listeners can get a feel for how they could connect with you in their own healing journey?
Sure, absolutely. So we offer quite a lot. We have classes for all different levels on the website, energymedicineyoga.net or emyoga.net. We offer for anyone that's just wanting to learn and understand what energy medicine yoga is and how you can get started on those practices. We offer some very specific modalities. We have some prenatal classes. We have pro-aging classes, things like that. We also offer teacher training. So that started when my first book came out and people wanted to learn how to teach this. And we've come to the point now where we actually put our signature foundations teacher training program online right before the pandemic. And so we had already prepared that. It wasn't like a knee-jerk response. It was a very deliberate program that we built that has been getting rave reviews. People actually prefer it to the in-person foundations training, which we also do have. But that foundations online training is wonderful. It's offered twice a year in the spring and the fall. If you're already a yoga teacher and you want to learn how to teach energy medicine yoga. And then we have a 300-hour advanced training program that you can apply to after you go through the foundations. We also have many of our advanced teachers offer one-on-one consultations and can create a very specific practice for you if there's something specifically that you're working on, and you can find those resources on the website. And I teach live at different retreats and festivals around the world. And this year I'll be teaching live twice at retreats, once in Canada, in northern Canada, between Vancouver and Vancouver Island, on one of the islands out there in the Sound. It's magnificent. It's my favorite retreat center to teach at. It's called Hollyhock. That'll be in August. And then in October, I'm teaching in New England at Kripalu, which many of you have heard of. It's sort of a global, internationally known retreat center, one of the most famous, and it's beautiful, and it'll be during foliage season. And I'm teaching that with a colleague, Hilary Crowley, who is an incredible intuitive health practitioner. So we'll be there in October. So you can come and study live with me if you want. And just following us, we have newsletters that are really newsworthy, that we're always giving tips and, linking things to the season and what's going on in the world. Again, leaning into that idea that everything is energy. So how do we energetically respond to the world around us, keep our sanity, keep our joyfulness, increase our ability to love and increase our compassion, and heal ourselves so that we can help the world to heal? That's really one of our guiding principles, is to be a force for healing in the world. So you can find out everything that's going on and reach out to us if you've got any other questions, all through the website at energymedicineyoga.net.
Amazing. And we will be linking to all of Lauren's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there for all the ways that you can reach her, or do the yoga teacher training, or take some classes if you'd like to, and find out where you can connect with her live as well this year. And this has been another incredible episode, and I really hope our listeners have enjoyed the journey into energy medicine yoga as much as I have. It has been fantastic chatting with you on the podcast today, Llewellyn. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really love sharing this work, and I hope that all of you listeners out there got something out of this. Take the leap. It's the easiest work you'll ever do, and it is some of the most powerful. So I encourage you, if you even have one little brain cell that's like, that sounds kind of interesting, follow that path and see what energy medicine yoga can do for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also thank you for the work that you do in bringing healing to the individuals that practice with you and your students and the world. Like you said, it's such an amazing project that you have started and the work that you do. So thank you for being that light shining into the healing corners of the world. And thank you again for being here, and take care, Llewellyn.
Thank you so much, Petra. Have a wonderful day. I look forward to speaking with you again.
Yes, me too. I definitely hope we get to do this again soon. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please subscribe, share on social media, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and the Journey blog. Sending you love and courage, and see you next week.